So the presentation is titled Turning Account Intelligence into Action. I think this is an awesome opportunity to really tell the story of ABM and building an ABM program basically from bottoms up in the course of 6 or 7 months. So thanks to Demandbase for giving me the opportunity to speak. Full disclosure, I'm not a sponsor of the event. I'm not telling you anything about Pluralsight. This is really just about ABM and how to use multiple vendors and multiple pieces of data to inform how you go to market with your ABX strategy. So by way of an agenda, I will start by introducing myself so you know who I am, and then I'll define what account intelligence means, why you should care about account intelligence, and then how you can inform a winning ABX strategy, and then weaving your account intelligence into each of your tactics that are part of that ABX strategy. And then finally, just one slide on the payoff of an ABX strategy. I'm not able to give you like hard revenue numbers. I was not allowed to have real revenue and pipeline numbers in this presentation, but hopefully you'll understand directionally the value of ABX within your B2B marketing organization. So about me, this picture was taken like 5 years ago. It's the best picture that I have. I don't think I look like that anymore, but I'm gonna use it for another 5 years until it really doesn't look like me. Before coming into Pluralsight, where I've been for about 7 months, and by the way, Pluralsight is a technology workforce development company. This isn't a presentation about what we do, but use your favorite search engine, Google us, and you can sort of learn about what we do and where we fit in the market. At Pluralsight, I lead our enterprise segment, which is our largest segment. We typically target companies that have 10,000 employees plus within our enterprise segment, as well as our dedicated ABX program, which includes one-to-one and one-to-few motions for strategic accounts. Prior to coming to Pluralsight, I have a MarTech background at a Fortune 500 bank where I thought a lot about identity and audience strategy. So when ABM was sort of like the big thing several years ago, I thought that this was just audience strategy in the context of B2B marketing. So fell in love with the frameworks, the concepts, and wanted to do that full time. And before that, I started my career as a K-12 educator. So if you all have kids or grandkids, nieces, nephews, like your teachers in your life are probably super stressed out, so do something nice for them, and I know that they'll appreciate that. So a question that I get a lot from a lot of people, especially tech vendors, is what does ABX look like at Pluralsight? So I've broken it down into sort of 4 categories. So first is our team structure. So at Pluralsight, we have a team of 4 ABX marketers. This is in addition to other B2B marketing teams within our organization. Our core ABX team consists of an account executive, a BDR, a customer success manager, and one of our ABX leads. Our key partners include our brand and content team that produces those custom pieces of content for us. Digital and web. So my colleague spoke earlier today, and she's a great ally of ours. We also rely heavily on marketing operations, sales operations, and analytics to make sure that we know that we're doing the right thing and are communicating across the organization that we are doing the right things. And we use very limited agency support, usually to allow for us to do a little bit more creative testing that our brand team can't always handle. We have 3 program objectives. The first and the most important is revenue. Everything that we do is towards revenue, and each of our individual OKRs and performance agreements is tied to the revenue that we create as part of those ABX teams. We are also mindful of building and accelerating pipeline. So whether it's marketing originated pipeline or sales originated pipeline, we don't actually really care within our ABX teams because we just want the account to be successful. So we share in the success and we share in the opposite of success with our account team. And finally, the thing that precedes pipeline and revenue is that account level engagement. Are the right people at the account engaged? Do you have a large buying committee at the account? We want to make sure that we have those story points for each of our accounts. And we want to make sure that people know who we are, that we're continually substantiating the value we bring to the market at those accounts. And if we don't do that well, we're not going to find pipeline and we're not going to get to revenue. Our key responsibilities as part of our ABX team. We are in charge of the first cut of account selection and research. We do digital demand creation and capture planning, as well as field planning. We do our content and offer customizations for our one-to-one accounts and our one-to-few cohorts. And we lead those bi-weekly stand-ups with our ABX team. We're the ones that create the agenda, send the meeting invite out, and making sure that we're holding each other accountable, sales, business development, customer success to each other. So that is the role of marketing in that team. And then our key deliverables, we, at the beginning of every year, or better yet, I should say in Q4 for the upcoming year, we deliver recommendations for which accounts should be part of our one-to-one motion and one-to-few motion. We are the ones that are providing and creating those account research decks. We create full journeys, top of funnel, middle funnel, bottom funnel for one-to-one and one-to-few accounts. And then we also are the ones that are planning and executing field events. That kind of sounds like a lot, and it is. We basically have an entire marketing organization in a small team. The difference is we have an audience of one or an audience of a few, right? And of course, we rely on the help of the people and teams in the top left of the slide. So before we got to this point, we had a number of challenges that we had to overcome. The first is we believe that we selected pretty good accounts in like 2020, 2021. Accounts that you guys have all heard of, right? There might be some accounts that might even be represented here. But really what happened was sales nominated accounts and marketing was like, great, like sales, like you're our boss, which isn't true. In actuality, we're supposed to be partners. And we accepted those logos and we tried to do good marketing. Number two, we weren't necessarily using the right ABX framework. We may have done sort of pieces of what good looks like, but we didn't have everything together. We didn't have sales, marketing, business development, success, all planning for the full account experience. Third, we weren't using data particularly well. We weren't using account intelligence very well. Our data was a mess. The audiences that we were using in digital ads didn't make sense. So we had a lot of things that were broken that had to be fixed. And really the thread, the common theme in 1, 2, and 3 is like we didn't have a foundation of account intelligence. We didn't really know what we were doing. We didn't have the data to be able to do marketing effectively. So first, like what exactly is account intelligence? So John from Demandbase gave, I think, a really good definition that is probably better than the slide, but I had to send this in 2 weeks ago, so I couldn't make any changes. So to me, account intelligence is the sum of offline information and online signals, right? And this should be a combination of first and third-party data. Meaningful offline information could include what contacts at a company are actually sharing with you. You can get this from a a gong recording, from looking at outreach sequences and what people are replying back. You can even talk to your customers if you're able to. Key published company initiatives. Follow your key accounts on LinkedIn, on Twitter. Go to their website, right? If your key account is an auto manufacturer, right, you should probably read up on the electrification of vehicles, right? Some of our accounts are car manufacturers, and that's what we've had to do in planning for those accounts. Also, look at firmographic and industry trends. If you're going after a bank, like, go read sources that bankers go and read. So the American Banker, different fintech websites. Make sure that you understand what the industry pain points are before you get started. Meaningful online signals include intent topic trends, qualification and propensity scores, and then web and media data, right? How is your media actually performing out in the digital wild? We use Demandbase for a lot of this, but I know that there's a lot of vendors that can meet these different use cases, right? So I think these are super important signals, so you should use your best judgment to figure out which provider meets use cases that are important to you. For us, Demandbase met those needs. So why does this matter? So there are sort of two different worlds, right, that I've thought of. One where decisions are made without account intelligence, and one where decisions are made with account intelligence. So when you aren't using account intelligence, what happens? There's a really good chance that you are using, that you're going after the wrong audiences altogether, right? They're not ready to buy. There's also a good chance that you'll guess correctly and find the right audiences, but you don't understand their pain points, you don't understand their immediate needs and future needs, so you're spamming them with irrelevant content. Another risk you have is really awkward calls to action. So I would say that monthly, at least, I will get like a conversational ad or an in-mail from a company I've never heard of, that I've never been to the website of, that I've never seen a video for, and they're like, hey, like, we can give you like $50 leads. Like, we've solved your pipeline problem, like, buy from us, right? And I've never responded because it's a really awkward call to action, right? I have no idea what this company is. You're also likely missing out on in-market audiences without those online intent signals. As marketers, like, I think of us as capital allocators, right? We are spending budget that a CFO has approved for marketing, and we need to make sure that we're spending it in the best way possible. And if we don't have account intelligence, if we aren't creating the right segments, going after the right accounts, we're probably spending money where we shouldn't be spending. And then, the result of those 5 bullet points is you should expect lower win rates, right? And the opposite is true when you're making decisions with account intelligence. And I see some people like taking a picture. Just like message me and I'll send you the deck. I don't mind. So how exactly should you plan for a winning ABX strategy? First, make sure that you have committed to the right objectives. So for us, it's revenue, pipeline, engagement. This doesn't mean that you shouldn't have other KPIs that matter, right? For each channel, like, you should have KPIs. Lead gen, I think, is still important. You need people to have conversations with, and you need an email or a phone number to interact with those people. So there's still a room for other types of KPIs, but make sure that everything is aligned towards revenue. And when you have revenue in the front of your mind, your marketing behaviors will change, and you'll start to play the short game of kind of lead gen, demand gen, but also the long game, which is really creating long-term engagement and goodwill at an account. The second point for winning ABX strategy is making sure that you're harnessing the power of data, right? Account intelligence that informs how you're selecting accounts, your account research, planning, and journey mapping, and then your digital demand planning and execution, your content and offer creation and customization, and then your field motions. And the last point, which is super important, is you're probably going to get things wrong, maybe even more often than not when you're first getting started. And it's super important to make sure that you have a culture where testing and iteration is encouraged, right? And if you're doing something wrong, that's okay, that's a lesson learned. Go make some refinements, try something different, and you'll get better over time. So the first tactic, the first how is around how you select your accounts. So I ask roughly 5 questions, and there's a lot more that goes into this than one slide shows. But the high-level checklist that I have for selecting accounts and making those recommendations to the organization is, 1, like, are we selecting accounts that are actually in market? Like, are they aware of the problem space that you operate in? Number 2, is there a high size of prize? Depending on your organization, that dollar amount is going to be different. For our organization, if it's not a 7-figure upside, it's not going to be part of our ABX motion because there are certain expectations that the organization has for what the ABX team delivers. High propensity to actually buy, right? Like, will they buy in 6 months? Will they buy in a year, right? There are definitely companies that are gonna have a 2.5 year deal cycle. If you need revenue in a year, right, maybe that's not the best option, even if there could be tremendous upside eventually. The fourth is there an acceptable level of effort with the account? Like, are they going to demand like 10 field events, right? Are you gonna have the budget to be able to go win that deal? And then the fifth is, once we've created our recommendations for our one-to-one and one-to-few accounts, is sales on board? Like, are they excited that they're gonna have ABX support? Is success excited? And are they willing to make sure that once we close giant deals, that they're gonna have the resources to make sure that they're lifelong customers? And we also need to make sure that executives, right, are also on board. There are definitely going to be strategic accounts at your organization that executives really want you to go after. And we need to also make sure that we have that alignment, that blessing from the SVPs and above at your organization. Next, how should you be planning for your accounts? So on the left side of the screen is sort of an anonymized version of a longer deck that we have where we take all of those offline and online signals and we answer the following questions, like, what actually matters to the account? What are the big priorities at the account? Do we have initiatives, or have we identified initiatives at the account where we have a unique offering for? Third, like, do we know who is in the sphere of influence? Like, are those contacts already engaged with sales? Do they already live in Salesforce? Or do we need to go, like, find who they are? And then finally, where are the opportunities? And this is really important for account selection at the beginning of a year. So we plan our accounts annually, and then at the 6-month mark, we kind of check to see if we made the right choices and we pivot. But a lot of the accounts that we select have existing pipelines, so we want to make sure that we've identified those opportunities, because one of our big priorities is, right, accelerating that pipeline and increasing the probability of those deals closing. Digital demand. So this is the area that I'm the most passionate about. And it's hard. Well, everything is hard, but I think this is especially hard when you're literally going after one account, right? And depending on the size of the account, it can be really, really tough. So in order to remove that challenge, right, and really go after that one important account, you need to know like what data you have. What first-party data do you have? How many customer records do you have that are important for that account? And what third-party data sets exist within your tech stack? Or do you need to go buy something from somewhere? Make sure that you know your pipeline and revenue targets that hopefully you're working with analytics, marketing operations. Make sure that you know your historical win rates and spend to pipe and spend to bookings ratios, and then work backwards, right? And that will tell you how many conversations do you need to source digitally, and how many different touch points typically are required to get a conversation going or to close or to get closed won business. These are incredibly important because it informs everything else, right? It'll tell you that like you have to spend a certain amount to get results, and if you underspend, you shouldn't expect to get what you are looking for, right? So a $1,000 LinkedIn campaign, don't expect to source $1 million in pipe if you need 15 different touch points across different digital channels, right? Make sure you're spending appropriately within these different digital channels. Speaking of digital channels, I strongly recommend using a portfolio of channels. So within our ABX platform program, we probably use maybe between 7 and 10 different channels to reach that one account or that small cohort of 1 to few accounts. It is possible to use Google. It is possible to use Facebook, even in B2B marketing. It does require some tech, some data, but it is possible, and I promise you that your buyers are there. Like your buyers have Instagram on their phone, right? And maybe they won't fill out like a lead gen form, right? But there are ways to engage them in the top of funnel and the middle funnel to drive that engagement and hopefully get them to your website and maybe convert eventually. I also caution against using every channel, right? So there are a lot of channels you could use, but depending on your budget, depending on your goals, it may not make sense to use 10 channels. Like maybe you just need 3 or 4 and do them really well. So typically what I've seen is when we do too much, we lose focus. It ends up being a lot of work for a lot of different people, and we end up, having a 2 per month frequency on LinkedIn when really we need like a 10 or a 20 frequency per month. And then finally, like make sure that for each channel, you're continuing to introduce your brand for those that are less aware, right, in their journey stages, that you're substantiating your brand in the middle funnel, and then you're finding those channels and those tactics that do help create that human connection, right? So that could be conversational ads on LinkedIn. That could be lead gen forms on LinkedIn or Facebook for a BDR to follow up. Don't do that like all the time, but that can be part of what you do digitally. And then making sure that your websites are also built to convert, right? So using a company like Drift, right, to capture people that are shopping on your website. Need to do a time check. Okay, we still have some time. So how do we plan our content and offers? Reference your account research deck. That is where everything starts, and a couple slides back, that deck, like we add ad copy behind the deck once we know the pain points of these businesses, so that we can continually like reference and add on when we try to position ourselves a certain way to our key accounts. It's so important to figure out what accounts actually care about so you can plan for them adequately, because if you aren't helping to solve their problem, and if you aren't positioning yourself as an expert in the space, I think it's going to be really difficult to win business. Another recommendation that I have is to make sure that you're continually creating new content. There is definitely such a thing as ad fatigue, and you don't want to have the same video run for a year unless it's like performing really well. Make sure that you have both long and short form thought leadership, and I think third-party validation is also super, super important, especially in the middle funnel. And whenever there's accounts that are up for renewal, right, and there are expansion opportunities, reminding them and nudging them back to us with third-party validation is really helpful. Make sure that you're investing in hyper-customization for your first-party audiences. So what that doesn't mean is having ads that say, hey, big company that's on my target account list, click here because we want you to spend money with us. Really, it's what problem do they have, right? So to the right, I've blocked out another logo, but we did a custom event for a company that is building on Google Cloud. We know that that's something important. We know that they're undergoing a digital transformation. So we wanted to make sure that we had an entire talk track and webinar just for that account with their specific use case in mind. And we are, we found like tremendous like pipeline origination from these types of events because we've proven that we know what problems they have, and they know that we're committed to helping solve those problems. One thing that we've really started to do in the past quarter, beginning of the quarter or so, is creating hubs for your one to few segments. So we recently launched like a financial services page that we are just directing people that we know work for banks to that page. And we really like the concept of not being overly salesy, right, for a lot of these industry pages, but really building engagement, recommending courses on Pluralsight that meet the unique needs of bankers. And that's something that hopefully we'll have more data on over the next weeks and months, but we're scaling to other industries slowly because we do think that there is value in having like a hub, right, where financial services technologists or people thinking about cloud technology, that they'll have like a little home on pluralsight.com to go visit. And then field events, similar methodology to content, right? Understand the account's problems and make something that is memorable, delightful, but also make sure that you're educating and substantiating your value proposition to those key people at those accounts. And then where possible, personalize and gamify experiences. So at Pluralsight, we have thousands and thousands of users at B2B companies that are taking courses and taking assessments, prepping for different tech certifications. And what we found nearing renewals is by doing like different challenges and blitzes where we have raffles and things, it gets usage up really, really high, and it earns us the chance to say, hey, it's time to buy 1,000 more licenses because there's a lot of engagement at your company. So I am just about out of time, which is why I sort of rushed the last two slides. And the crowning right jewel. And I wish we had numbers because like the numbers I'm like really proud of. But we exceeded 100% of our pipeline and revenue goals for 2021. And 100% of our one-to-one accounts made a purchase in H2. And that is, I think, really significant and a testament, right, that ABX increases the probability of winning. Right? It doesn't guarantee it, right? We can't force someone to sign a contract, but we literally give them every reason to sign that contract because we try and continually build that goodwill, that value, and they know that we're leaders in our space. And as a result, 2022, we've doubled our program's investment. More money, more headcount, and as a result, like a lot bigger goals for 2022. but we're super excited for what's ahead.